Welcome back to Mad Props. It's been a very long time, 2 months actually, exactly. Not to the date, but about 2 months since the last episode of Mad Props. Um, there's a reason for it. I actually moved. I got a new job. I got a new position um, with the Houston Texans. So in the NFL, I've been spending the last 2 months moving and getting into the job. I've been in the job for 2.5 months just about, and it's just been kind of hectic, kind of crazy. I started the job and I went right into traveling and working and stuff like that. So I haven't really had any time to start my podcast back up. It was already kind of going down a little bit. We were losing guests. The solo episodes weren't coming out the way I really wanted them to. So this was a much needed break because it just helped us recalibrate everything we were doing and kind of helped me get back on track with the stuff I want to do. But that's why there hasn't been an episode. It's a little bit of I moved and it's been hectic. I mean, if you're watching right now, whether it's on Spotify or YouTube or wherever you're going to be watching, you can see my background. There's a box over my shoulder, unless I crop that out. The Suggs jerseys on the floor. If you're watching, you see me like looking into my camera. I have a little bit of a different setup right now. I'm holding my microphone. It's not on a stand, but that's because I just haven't been able to really get set up yet. So it's still a little makeshift. It's still a little, working through it all, but we're here and we're back at it. So one of the things I decided to do going forward is because guests have been hard to get. I actually have 2 or 3 of them lined up right now. I'm trying to get a chunk of them going so I can record these and then put them out over as we go. But guests have been hard to get, and it's actually acted a lot as a delay in Mad Props. Like it's helped delay a lot of this. And it's one of the reasons I think the series started to turn a little bit. We saw the dip in numbers. We saw stuff like that. Like the ones with guests, certain guests were higher, other guests were lower. And then the solo ones, like some of them were okay. Some of them were pretty, not great numbers. The last one we did not put up the numbers we were expecting it to do based on the trends we saw earlier in the year. So I decided to kind of scrap the, everyday life thing that we were doing back and forth and trying to go in a different direction. So Mad Props is still going to be an interview podcast. That is what I want it to be, a casual conversation, I like to call it. That's really what I would like it to be. But going forward, that's not going to be what they all are. They're going to be kind of short podcast documentary type style things. We'll see how it all production-wise goes. This one might be a little, I'm going to try my best. And I'm going to go into why this one's a little why everything's so hectic in this one. Like, the room is crazy, and I'm holding my microphone and all that stuff. It's because I really wanted to get this one out before today when you're listening, or October 17th, Friday, October 17th, if you're not listening. And we'll get into the reason why momentarily. And that's going to be the theme of this episode. But that's kind of what I want to do with these episodes. If they're not having a guest, I want something that is engaging. I want something that's new. I want something that has research done to it. Before I started doing video and podcasting, which is now what I do professionally, not only with this podcast, but with my new job, I was a journalist. So I researched a lot of stuff. I interviewed a lot. That's why I like the interview style. That's why I feel like I'm pretty decent at it. But I like that kind of stuff. So the research and the bringing something new to the light is something I want to kind of incorporate into that. So all that is a long-winded way to say we're going to change it up a little bit. But this time, I think this format's going to stick depending on how everybody, reacts to it and how everybody feels about it. But I like this, how it's going to go. I have a couple of really fun scripts already wrote. I'm going to tell you right now, when I say a script, it's very baseline. And you're going to see some things that are a little different, like some growing pains. Like I might look down a little bit a lot because I'm still getting used to this kind of format. Usually I'm free-flowing and going. I have bullet points. I have topics. I have things I want to hit. And so I have to look at them really quickly. They're right below my camera, so it shouldn't be too noticeable, but that'll get better over time as well and everything. So all of this being said, everything that's being said here, on October 17th, 2015, I started Offstage. Now, for those of you that have been with me since the beginning, you know what Offstage is. But I'm going to reiterate for the people that might be joining for the first time, might have joined late, whatever it is. Offstage was a documentary series that I did. It was semi-successful. I say semi because it did get into film festivals. It did help bring me to where I am today. A lot of the connections I made, I still talk to today and things like that. So in that sense, it did help me. But I say semi-successful because nothing really came of it. It was a lot of work. I wasn't really happy with how they all came out overall. But I'm not going to get into any of that because you can go listen to the countless podcasts, radio shows, podcasts I've done. There's a lot of different things where I talk about this. So I'm not really going to get into that as much as I used to. But I will say, like, that's why I call it semi-successful. Overall, it worked out, and it's still a big part of my career. So for this first episode, because I already have the research done, because it's me that did everything, I wanted to do a deep dive into the 10-year anniversary of Offstage, how it started, what it was. I went through old interviews I did. I went through old articles that were written about it. I went through old press releases that were written about it. I went through all of the archives and created a podcast documentary style script going over the 10 years of Offstage. So another thing about this one, we have some new sponsors that are going to be coming along. I'm still working out the details with them, making sure that they're the right fit and things like that. But we do also still have some sponsors like Audible and stuff. And even though I just plugged it there, I've decided for this episode I'm not going to run any sponsors. This is going to be a sponsor-free podcast because it's a new format. So I don't want to get into, go do this, go do that. I just want to get right into it and get going. So without further ado, we're going to roll the credits. The only thing we will roll is the title screen. So roll the credits. Stay right there. Tune in. This is Mad Props. 10 years ago on this release date, October 17th, 2015, I went out and I bought a D5300 Nikon camera. With that camera, I wanted to do something that could keep me, so I don't get rusty with a camera, but also, I do these podcasts and I do a bunch of other stuff. I like being creative, so I wanted to do something creative, and I had the idea, wasn't really an original idea, but the idea of doing a documentary about bands. For any of you that have ever watched anything ever, behind the music type style stuff has been going on forever. But I wanted to do something myself. Like I didn't care that it was an old concept. I wanted to redo it and do it myself. The title Offstage, I think it just kind of hit me. I don't think there was any, I didn't sit and think, what should it be called? What should it be called? I think it just kind of hit me. I was like, Offstage, that's a really good name for it because we're talking to artists off stage. Almost like this one is called Mad Props because we were talking about things outside of the realm of what people do and give them props for that. The series itself is about artists before the fame, before the headlines, record deals, sold out crowds, all that stuff that they dream for. Full disclosure, none of them did get any of that. There's one or two of them that are still doing music, but most of them aren't even doing music anymore, or they're not, big in the music industry in that way. But we wanted to show that grind. We wanted to show you selling your album on the street. We wanted to show you recording in a closet or in a bathroom, like the things you do to try to grind to become. At the time, we didn't know what it would become because it had a bunch of different iterations before we finally came to the first one. I just knew that I really wanted to do something that I could be proud of and that I could put my name on and that could maybe go places and things like that. Was it successful? You could be the judge. but it's been 10 years. Here's where it all started. Here's where it took me. And here's to 10 years of Offstage. When Offstage was first conceived, I wanted it to be something, like I said, like a behind the music type thing. The original plan was actually supposed to be a behind the scenes of the day of a show for Imagine Dragons, them doing a show at MetLife Stadium. For anybody that doesn't know, like I said, it's 10 years ago. So think of Imagine Dragons 10 years ago. They were probably one of the biggest bands in the world at the time. I mean, they were playing MetLife Stadium. It was sold out. And they kind of gave us the okay. Like, they were cool with it. And then I would say about a week before the show, there's a lot of back and forth. And at the last second, they decided to back out. They were like, we can't do this. We wanted to be able to accommodate. And then when I was telling the details of it, they were like, I don't know if we want to really show all this, crazy stuff. Basically, what the email basically said is crazy stuff happens backstage. We don't want it documented. Sorry, maybe next time. I'll be honest with you. It could have been over right there. We had it all planned. We had it all ready to go. That could have been it. But I didn't want to just give up on it. So instead, I went back to the drawing board. This was probably June 2015 that this happens. So I went back to the drawing board, and I was like, what can we do instead of chasing major artists? This is probably going to be something that happens every single time. There were thousands of, documentaries about thousands of shows, all that stuff. And I wasn't getting my foot in the door. So I decided instead to try a little different of approach. What if we found a younger artist, an up-and-coming artist that is talented, hungry, grinding? Why don't we show that side of it? We all know the Motley Crue stories. We all know those big band stories. But we don't really know that up-and-comer. So I just completely pivoted, and it gave it a little bit of more purpose instead of it just being a behind-the-scenes type thing. So the first episode, the one that is the 10-year anniversary of on this day of filming, is with Damon St. Cloud from New Jersey. I actually discovered Damon, which this has been in many interviews and many different things. I discovered Damon while I was I was at my parents' house. I was cleaning the basement, and I had Music Choice on. For anybody that doesn't know what Music Choice is, Time Warner Cable, I don't know if it's still Time Warner Cable that has it or if everybody has it, but Time Warner Cable had it. His song, Charlie Bartlett, which was like his big single, was on there. And I was listening. I was like, oh, I know all the artists on there when it's going. And I was like, who the hell is this guy? Like, this is kind of smooth. It's a little more old school. Like, I really like the beat. The guy flows really well. You could tell it was East Coast, definitely. But, I was like, oh, it's a little new age East Coast where it's not, hard. It's not, it's not, gang related. It's not, violence. It's not, it still has that New York grit, that Eastern grit, but, a little more of that new age mellow at the time. So I look him up. I see he's, a smaller artist. I was like, good for you for getting your stuff on Music Choice, first of all, because he was not, he was, with Lil Wayne and T.I. and all these big artists. I was like, oh, that's good for you, man. So I reach out to him, and I give him the pitch, hey, my name is Chris. I'm trying to do this big idea, I want to show you getting ready for a show. And I did it in Connecticut, which we'll get to in a second. And he got back to me. I was driving out to Connecticut that day. I actually was freaking out because I've been waiting for this call all day, and they were late on the call. And when I got the call, I was in a dead spot. So I just found they call. I couldn't answer. I called back because I find this little sliver of road. It was called K Avenue or something like that in the middle of nowhere. I find this little avenue, and I sit on it for 2 hours. And I'm just talking to him, going through the idea, going through the pitch, telling him, this is what I'm thinking. This is where it could be. I'll set everything else up. You just let me know. You just let me know. And he was in. I think he was skeptical at first, but he was in. It's good, it's good publicity for a young artist to have all this video of you and stuff like that. So that's what we ended up doing. You can go back and watch it. I'm not going to explain the whole thing. It's on YouTube. It's actually on the Mad Props YouTube page because that switched over from a different page. So they're actually all there. All the off stages if you go to oldest videos, you can find them all. But we went through his entire day. You know, he was on the radio. He performed all this stuff. It wasn't polished. It wasn't big budget, but I think we captured things pretty well. There was obviously some regrets. I'm not going to go through them all because there's been a lot of things. A funny story from it that I don't think I've ever said on anything. A lot of the equipment we used was my own. I didn't really rent anything. I didn't have the money to rent anything, but we did need some other things like some lav mics. We needed a boom mic. We needed, I believe, a second camera. Like there were a couple things we did need, and we actually borrowed them all from the Subway headquarters. We had a little bit of an in with the Subway headquarters, and we borrowed a lot of their equipment to shoot this film. So they never knew about it. This is the first time it's ever been said publicly, but we did use Subway equipment to do a lot of the stuff, and that's how we captured most all of it because I just didn't have the money to do anything. It premiered at the New Haven Docs Film Festival. It was our first ever. It was my first ever film festival. It actually happened on my birthday. I went with my friend Dave, and I got pretty litty. At the time, I used to partake in some drinks, and I had a Q&A. It was an awesome night. I still look back at some of those things. I actually look back constantly at the video of it getting a standing ovation because I just thought, like, man, I didn't think it was really any that good. But, you know, it did a little bit there. So that was the only film festival that one got into. But it was really awesome. The second one we did was Offstage Last Reach featuring Casey Grennan. It floats between Last Reach and Casey Grennan because she changed her band name to just her name, and I think I changed it a couple years down the road, so if people searched for it, it would come up. But it was about Casey. She was 14 at the time. She had a band, if same thing follows in the day. I'm not going to explain all the documentaries because you can go watch them. That's not really what I want to do with this one. I more want to talk about the creation of it. After the mild success of Damon St. Cloud, I say mild success because it got into a film festival and everything, I decided I wanted to do like an open call. So I went on Facebook. I went on the New England musicians site, and I said, we're looking for artists. You know, please film out this form. And it was to my, Schnabel Productions. It wasn't Schnabel Studios at the time. I wasn't thinking that well of what flows. It was like the Schnabel Productions site, and then, a bunch of people, like 80 bands reached out within a couple hours. We scanned through them. There was, some good people in there, but nobody that really stood out. There were a couple that we actually circled back to later that never really became anything. We never did a film with them or anything like that, but we did circle back to them to try, like, should we do something with them? But we never did. But Casey's stood out because she was already pretty successful. She'd already had done a lot, and she was I think she was 13 going on 14 at the time. And it just gave us a little bit of a hook. We're like, oh, she's a 14-year-old that just opened for, I don't even remember who, a country singer that I don't remember who it was. And she was performing all over Boston. She was from New Hampshire. She was performing all over the place. We're like, okay, this is someone we should try to get and try to do. So we did that. Hers was kind of cool because we followed her through like her day in high school, and she was in school. We followed through her day in school, and then what she did after school, and it was pretty crazy. That was actually filmed in a couple days as well. The first time I met them, they were at Faneuil Hall in Boston doing an acoustic set, and I kind of just like showed up and talked to them and talked through it all with them, and it was a little awkward at first because like this random 23-year-old is coming up and talking with Casey and her mom, who was her manager at the time, and it was a little awkward, but they were great people. I really respect them, and I'm happy to have done that one. That's probably one of my personal favorites because of the connections I made outside of that and keeping up with them and things like that. But I guess the funny story from that one is the bassist at the time, her name is Skylar Gray, right? I want to make sure. No, Skylar Burke. Skylar Gray is the singer. Skylar Burke, who was the bassist, and she actually was in the movie Noah, where she played like a young Emma Watson or something like that. and that wasn't something that was brought up in a pre-production or anything like that. It was just set on camera, like straight up. We were just recording, and she just set it on camera, and we're like, "Wait, what?" And it came. She got a little more focus at the end of the day because we're like, "Oh, like this person has been in a big blockbuster movie, and that's kind of crazy that that happened." Um, so yeah, that was fun. After that, we kind of shifted directions a little bit. We went with Mike Kaplan, who is he's a pretty big comedian now. He's a big podcaster, and we followed him around. Again, nothing crazy. Alex Grubard was probably the most unique one we have because it's not. He wasn't a comedian. He wasn't an artist. He hosted a live show. So we not only did we follow him and get ready on that, but we also like recorded the whole show. So somewhere out there, because I know it was edited, there is the entire show out there somewhere of that 2017 or whatever Alex Grubard Weeding Out the Stoned episode. It's an awesome show. Weeding Out the Stoned is, I believe it's one sober person in a group of high comedians. And you have to guess who the sober person is. The audience has to figure it out. It's a pretty funny show. He still does it. So if you ever see it, definitely go check it out. But that one was a lot of fun. That one was fun. That had the biggest crew we ever had. It was 7 people. So if you're ever wondering like how it goes, we had 7 people. And a lot of people I'm still pretty close with in that one. So that was pretty fun. From there, we went down south. Brandon Gill, B. Gill, who's been on this podcast, and you probably know him from other Schnabel Studios things if you listen for a long time. But if you don't, he's a very close friend of mine. Went to college together. We did a lot of production stuff together in college. And then he actually interviewed Damon in the Damon St. Cloud episode, and then he was the co-producer of all the episodes after that, I think except for one. I think it was just the Ultra that he wasn't a part of, but he was a part of all of the other ones. And we got in a car and filmed. I think it was 4 episodes in 5 days. So we did Bravo in Connecticut, which was for me. I think Bravo could have been the best one, but it was unfinished. You kind of get to the end and you're like, what the hell happened? It just all came together so quickly. It's almost like the movie Snow on the Bluff. If you've never seen Snow on the Bluff, like the beginning and the end, they're just so scripted. The rest of it doesn't feel scripted. I don't know if it is or not. It's not supposed to be. But the beginning and end just are so completely scripted. And it just feels the end. This documentary feels like the end was super scripted because the song was supposed to be finished and it just couldn't finish in the amount of time we needed, and we couldn't stick around. Everything's usually filmed in one day with the occasional 2-day shoots, so we had to go. So we kind of like finished it, and then we did a radio hit on WNHU of the song's like first ever radio play, and that's kind of how it finishes. Definitely check that one out though, because I think overall that's one of our best ones. There's the most emotion in that one, because that one was filmed in 2 days. I just remembered. The first half of it is him getting ready to compete in a competition in front of Funk Flex. And then the next part is him kind of transitioning after that event after that battle to like a different style of rap. So that one's a pretty good one. Then we went to Nashville and we recorded Shane Cook and Katie Burke. Maybe I did get someone's name wrong. If I got someone's name wrong, I apologize. This is my first time doing this thing. And I did a ton of research for this. This all came together in like a week because I wanted to make sure I got it out. But we did Katie Burke. We did Shane Cook. And that one, pretty good. Katie Burke's came out really good. I think those have the best performances of any of them. For anyone that's made it this far, they all have performances in them. I think that one had the best performances. And then we scooted over to Atlanta, and we sat with T-Rex the Tyrant, who is from Athens, Georgia. I said Atlanta. It's actually Athens, Georgia. And he kind of talks about Athens and his home city and, things like that. And he creates a song like in a closet. It was pretty dope. So Bravo and T-Rex, by the way, both created a song in a closet to show that one. Fun fact about that one, The air conditioning broke in the apartment we were in for that episode. We all had towels. If there's some good photos, I'll try to find them and put them in this. There's some good photos of Kyle and myself and B. Gill, and I know the one I could specifically think of is Kyle sitting with the audio deck in front of him with an ice towel on his neck because it was so damn hot in that apartment. It was Athens in the middle of the summer. That was a tough one when the AC broke. But I mean, B. Gill and I barely slept, barely ate, made it through tons of people and tons of cities, and I thought that stretch were some of the best ones to come around. After that, we did the Ultra and we did Ticker Tape, and those two were pretty good as well. I liked how Ticker Tapes came out as well. I thought Ticker Tape was a pretty good one as well. That's the last one, I believe. Though I don't remember what order those two came out off the top of my head, but those are the last two, and then that was it. That was it for the ones that we filmed and did. Not everything went perfectly. Sometimes the mics failed mid-performance. Sometimes we lost audio, full takes, and had to scramble. Some memory cards have gotten corrupted along the way. One time we got kicked out of a venue. Manny had to come over. Manny Skyers, who, again, he was a roommate of mine, one of the producers of it, had come over and talked to the owner and kind of let us back in, because they weren't letting us do what we needed to do, and they just wanted us out of there. Things don't ever go great. There's a lot of hurdles, and you just got to fight through it. The biggest one that ever happened in our entire history was Sons Lunaris. So that is the lost episode. That is the episode that never made it. That's the episode I've always thought maybe I'll go back and do it. It was probably the coolest concept of any of them. The footage all came out really good, but it just never worked. So Sons of Lunaris is like a jam band out of Boston, Massachusetts, and they, like any band, are short on funds. So they wanted to record their debut album, in 24 hours. They rented out a space, and they were like, we're going in. This is the perfect time to film. I was in contact with them for a year or so at this point. It was exhausting for them. It was exhausting for us. But overall, it was about to be content gold, and that's why we had to do it. 15 songs, one day, no cameras rolling the whole time. We actually had 3 shooters, and we would take breaks. One person would shoot, one person would sleep. Maybe 2 people would shoot, one person would sleep. We were up for 24 hours doing this. I took off work. I wanted to make this go. I wanted this to happen. Problem was, so we do the whole documentary. We get it all going. And then, big problem, they don't finish the album. Even bigger problem. They then spent the next 5 years re-recording the entire thing, changing the songs, changing the arrangements, using different instruments, using different people in some of them. So everything we got, all that footage we got, all those time spent recording, completely unusable. But not only that, even if we wanted to dub it and make believe it really was that episode, it was 5 years later. How are we supposed to do it 5 years later? It just wasn't going to work. So, amazing concept. Footage was strong, but sometimes things just don't work out. It's all part of doing this, We were lucky enough to shoot 11 and be able to produce 10 and not have anything bad happen there. So you got to remember, even in failure, that's why we started off stage. It was to capture the process. It was to be raw. It was to be show you everything. And sometimes when you're showing people everything, things just don't work out. Looking back on it, 10 years ago, 22-year-old Chris decided to pick up a camera and make a documentary series without ever really being a creative shooter even. But, I wouldn't be where I am right now in my role with the Houston Texans without doing something like Offstage. First of all, it taught me about patience. Things are going to go wrong. things aren't going to go the way you want them to, but you need to be patient. You need to understand that's going to be what happens here. It also taught me like how to work with other people. You know, artists, especially some artists are really cool. Some artists are hard to work with. We didn't really have too much of a problem with anybody, but it goes back and forth. It taught me how to really work with people and figure out. It also taught me how to schedule. I scheduled something that's probably well, most of this is unknown, but something I've never brought up in any other form. I scheduled basically everything the first couple episodes. Most of the shows, most of the appearances, most of everything it was scheduled by me. I paid for people. I paid for other acts. I did a lot of that stuff because that's what I had to do. That's what I had to do to make it work. So that's what I did. The biggest thing that Offstage taught me is you don't need $1 million budget to do something great. You know, even though I said some of them are I called it mildly successful. We got into, I think, over 50 film festivals. You know, there's only 10 episodes. That's a lot of film festivals for even, you know, that's a lot for 10 episodes. A couple of them were like actually like pretty well acclaimed. Casey's was very well acclaimed at the time for being a young filmmaker. And it just showed like sometimes just be scrappy. You don't really need to be, you know, you don't need to pay for everything. You don't need a budget for everything. You don't need to always have the equipment that is supposed to be used. Sometimes you just got to be smart, and you got to know what to do with your stuff, with the stuff you have, because that's all you have. You don't have a budget to go buy something else. You don't have a budget to pay for this. How are you going to do it? That's what it really taught me. And today, I still use it today, and I'm in a situation where if you do need something, you can find the budget for it. But my instinct is to be like, oh, I don't have X. How can I salvage it? And that's what I do. So all I had was a camera back then and some equipment borrowed from a major sandwich corporation and made things happen. Like you just got to do what you got to do. Another thing, I guess the closing thought I have on this before I wrap it up, and you know, the next one will be a little more structured and things, but I kind of got into story mode and went a little past my notes and stuff like that. There was a couple edits because I just totally skipped over some stuff. I'm really thankful for all the artists that decided to participate. I'm really thankful for the artists that decided not to participate, and there were a lot of them. The original slate was supposed to be 20 episodes. Like I said, one is a lost episode that was recorded, and there were 9 people that were on board and then decided against it. A couple of them, I don't know if it was they saw the film and they didn't want to be a part of it anymore, or they just didn't believe we would actually come out and do it, or whatever it was. I'm thankful for those people. I always wished that we could like make something of it where it could be of value to people to where they'd want to pay for it, but we never got paid for it. It was just, this was a passion. This is what we wanted to do. And it's crazy that it's been 10 years. I think about it all the time doing a new episode. I think about it constantly, but I just don't think it's going to happen. It's been 10 years, moved on to different things. You know, that's for people that really, really don't know, that haven't been from the beginning. This used to be called Offstage Radio. It was supposed to be an offshoot of it 5 years ago when I started it. And then about halfway through, I decided it's time to put Offstage to rest. It's had its time. Maybe one day we do it again, but for now, we're just going to keep it as it is. So 10 years later, I still look back on it. I still watch it. I still enjoy it. I'm probably going to go watch it again because I have a lot of memories now that I'm thinking of. But thank you all for listening. Thank you for hearing another iteration of the Offstage story. I hope that we can make another one day. But for now, we'll just kind of talk about it as the years go up and the years come by. Thank you so much for listening to Mad Props. Please follow us on social media at Mad Props Pod. We've been posting on TikTok. We are going to start posting again on our Instagram. Obviously, we paused on that. You can also follow me at Chris Schnabel on Instagram or at Chris.Schnabel on TikTok as well. I post a lot of stuff on there as well. If you want to stay updated with a lot of the stuff I'm doing in my new job, follow me on social media as I repost most of it, so you can find it there. If you want to reach out to me, go ahead and reach out to me on there or on the Mad Props page. We try to respond as soon as we possibly can. Thank you guys so much for being here. We do have a couple guests lined up, so hopefully the next episode we'll have a guest. But I also have already written the scripts for some really good episodes, so hopefully these solo episodes go really well. See you later. This has been Matt Props. See ya. Peace.